Say, Miriam, I watched Sheldon sitting so proud in the White House when we gave Miriam the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets, or they're dead. She gets it, and she's a healthy, beautiful woman. And they're rated equal.
You know, you did hear that right. That was Donald J. Trump at a fundraiser at his big golf club at Bedminster, New Jersey last night after being introduced by Miriam Adelson. You know, if you know her, she's the widow of Sheldon Adelson, a huge mega millionaire who gave millions of dollars to Republicans and Donald Trump's first campaign, who died many years ago. She was his very first Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. And you heard him right. You heard what you heard. He said that the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is bestowed by the president on his initiative to private citizens who excelled in public-private endeavors, is equal or, frankly, better than the Medal of Honor given to military members who display exceptional gallantry in battle. And it's only awarded after a thorough, rigorous review with witnesses and statements. The entire chain of command, all the way to the president, gets before you get a Medal of Honor. And the whole thing has set the veterans community off. I mean, look, the fact is they're not equal and one is not better. As a matter of fact, here's what we had to say at VoteVets just on Twitter today. Yeah, it's one-off insult of our troops, our veterans. It started when he got kicked out of Vietnam with Bone Star. This is who Donald Trump is, basically. He insulted John McCain. He insulted Gold Star families. He's called our fallen suckers and losers. Refused to go to military cemetery because he thought he'd get rained on. It goes on and on. Now, he, of course, compares these medals to each other. This is who Donald Trump is. You know, it's Trump supporters could probably argue that he never really said suckers and losers, that just John Kelly is the one who said that. But let me tell you something. Here's a video I show a lot. This is when he was on camera at a conference, in actually a Christian conference in 2015, when he was asked about his criticism of John. He called John McCain dumb and a loser. And this was Donald Trump's answer as candidate Trump back in 2015 when he was asked about John McCain being a hero, attacking a war hero.
I supported him for president. I raised $1 million for him. It's a lot of money. I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But, you know, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you agree with that?
He's a war hero because he was captured, okay? You can have, and I believe perhaps he's a war hero, but right now he said some very bad things about a lot of people. So what I said is John McCain, I disagree with him that these people aren't crazy. And, very importantly, and I speak the truth, he graduated last in his class at Annapolis. So I said, nobody knows that. I said he graduated last or second to last. He graduated last in his class at Annapolis. And he was upset. I said, why? For telling the truth? See, you're not supposed to say that somebody graduated last or second to last in their class because you're supposed to be, like Frank says, very nice. Folks,
well, I guess I'm picking this up. We lost Fred there for a second. Are you absolutely stunned by that? Are you absolutely like just knocked silent by listening to that? You get to like juxtapose where he was in 2015 as brand new candidate Trump. I remember that. It was like, I think June of 15. It was right after he announced when that came out. And I remember watching that clip and saying at the end of it, whoa, like that was fun. His 2 weeks as a candidate is over. And we carried on, didn't we? We went the distance with him. And now I think if you notice too, listen to his speech last night and then what he sounded like in 2015, you can absolutely see the decline in Donald Trump. You can see how far he's fallen and really mentally listen to some of the words that were coming out of his mouth. This is a guy who has claimed that he wants to have another bite at the apple of being our commander-in-chief. I don't think that's the guy. I don't think that's the guy we want. So I don't know. Where are we here? Am I the only one left?
No, that was fun. Gotta love the internet. This is the joy of live streaming, guys. Things go horribly wrong every time you try.
This is the
DDoS attack. DDoS attack.
That's what it is.
Let's just jump while in flight.
I'm glad that went well. And if I disappear again, Mike, you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Let's just introduce guys, okay? So let's get right to it, because obviously things are going to go this way. This is the very first VoteVets live stream. As you can see, it's going awesome. We'll get better, I'm sure. My name's Fred Wellman. I'm now the host of VoteVets Live. Maybe not after this. We'll see. What we're going to do, you can see a lot more of these. This is a new series we're starting. We'll be working with you here on YouTube, bringing in our experts and guests, like you just met my friends Mike and Mary, and talking about the issues that matter to veterans, national security, and our politics. And this is the first of the hopefully many more of those. We had Donald Trump, of course, smearing our Medal of Honor inadvertently because he thinks so little of us. But the reason we wanted to come together today especially is this is the end of sort of the anniversary of the 2-year anniversary of the PACT Act. The PACT Act is a significant piece of legislation, and we wanted to bring our experts here to talk about it. And I even got a little to read about it. So, the PACT Act is officially the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson honoring our promise to address Comprehensive Toxics Act. A big word, but we just say the PACT Act amongst us veterans. This legislation was signed by President Biden 2 years ago on August 10th, 2022. It's been an absolute game changer for veterans of all eras. And VoteVets, I'm proud to say, has been a key player in that effort to get it passed and encourage veterans to take advantage of this new earned benefit and talk about it and see what's back. We just completed a really cool bus tour, which is why I'm bringing Mike and Mary here. But I got let's do a little video showing you what, here's the White House's recent video honoring the 2-year anniversary of the PACT Act.
This vote, the yeas are 86, the nays are 11. Under the previous order requiring 60 votes for the adoption of this motion to concur, the motion is agreed to.
2 years ago, I fought for and signed the PACT Act. It was one of the most significant laws ever. I handed the pen that I signed it with to a widow and a daughter of the late Sergeant First Class Heath Robertson. They fought for years to see it pass. The family that suffered the greatest loss turned its pain and purpose to help others. Many of you and your family members and advocates fought for years to make this happen. After 41 Republican senators, a vast majority of that caucus voted against the bill, against expanding health care for disabled veterans. Folks literally slept on the Capitol steps the week we were fighting this out to get it done. They literally slept on the steps. As long as I have a breath in me, we're going to fight to get this done. As long as I have a breath in me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
That's courage. That's character. That's America. Headaches, numbness, dizziness, trouble breathing, cancer, brain cancer. Folks, you suffered long enough. You shouldn't have to prove that your illness came from their service. But thanks to the PACT Act, you don't have to prove it now. Veterans, you are the solid steel spine of our nation, and that's not hyperbole. In America, we leave no veteran behind.
Well, that's a great video from President Biden honoring the 2-year anniversary. VoteVets was one of the lead organizations to help get this passed. Important legislation. And it was not an easy journey, as the president mentioned. It did fail the first time, which we will talk about, I'm sure. Senator Jon Tester, who's actually in a re-election fight right now in South Dakota, was one of the biggest proponents of it, helped write that bill. He was out there with the veterans, sat in the Capitol steps. Here's a little video we got of Jon Tester talking about the passage of the act that very day, the second time around, when the PACT Act did finally pass on August 2nd.
Mike Hughes from the Veterans, as chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. When I first introduced this bill last year, we set out with a clear goal: to right the wrongs of decades of inaction and failure by us, the United States government, to provide all eras of toxic-exposed veterans the VA care and benefits that they have earned. Today, the Senate took the historic step of delivering health care and benefits to all eras of veterans by the passage of the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, honoring our promise to address Comprehensive Toxic Act, otherwise known as the PACT Act. For hundreds of thousands of veterans of all generations, for our all-volunteer military, this bill puts us on a path to finally paying the cost of war. This bill is legislation we envisioned when we set out to right wrongs of our toxic exposed veterans. The PACT Act recognizes that responsibility, and it recognizes the cost of war. Thank you to the men and women who have served in our military. Thank you for what you've done for this country. Thank you for protecting our freedoms. Thank you for keeping us safe.
It was a great speech, and John's still passionate about that. I want to bring my friends on here now. Let's bring Mary Kaczynski, who's our Director of Government Relations at VoteVets, and Mike Levine, who is our Senior Advisor, who just got back. Mary, Mike, welcome to the show. Mary, you were key in getting this, you're part of the government relations helping out. It was a heck of a fight, wanting to get this thing passed 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, it was an incredible fight, Fred. And, looking back on it, this is something that VoteVets is certainly proud of. And the coalition of organizations that really came together, folks like yourself, Fred, John Stewart got involved as well. But it really was an enormous fight. And again, as we think about it, this should be a no-brainer. Veterans fought, they sacrificed, they put their lives on the line for our country. They earned these benefits. You come back with brain cancer, lung cancer, or whatever it is, asthma, surely we can help you out. We can cover healthcare for that. But all along the way, Republicans put up roadblocks to passing this legislation. And they continue to this day. I know we're going to get to the story of that, but that's the really important story of PACT, I think, is how it revealed the rot at the core of the Republican Party that we see from Donald Trump on down. They view veterans as pawns, but they don't want to pay for your earned benefits.
And how'd that go down that first time? Why did they kill it the first time?
Yeah, so back in 2022, when we had the Dem trifecta, Joe Biden in the White House, Democrats held the House and the Senate. PACT had been on the table, discussions about how we're going to care for veterans exposed to burn pits, these massive pits of basically burning garbage in Iraq and Afghanistan. You guys are both veterans of those wars. Burn pits are everywhere.
Yep.
When we had that trifecta in 2022, now is the time, right? Now is when we're going to get the PACT Act done. We had the bill done. We had all the technical details lined up. The Senate passed it, went back to the House. House passed a different version, so the Senate had to pass it again. The very last minute, on that same day of the Senate vote, the last vote, that final vote for the PACT Act, Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin announced a totally different bill, a bill to invest in climate change. And in retaliation, just to take out their pure spite because they hated the climate change bill, Mitch McConnell and a whole bunch of Senate Republicans flipped their vote. They hated the climate bill so much, and they're like, we're going to show those Democrats, or we're going to show those veterans, so we're going to kill the PACT Act. It was really, really, it was shocking. It was disgusting, but also not really disgusting because this is who Republicans are. They revealed it on that day when they tried to kill PACT.
And they were high-fiving. I mean, I should have gotten the clip, but we literally have video of them high-fiving Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, that they killed veterans' healthcare legislation for millions of veterans, aren't they? They were damn proud of their work, weren't they?
Oh, they were so proud of it, right? Because they knew that this is something that Democrats wanted, because Democrats stand with veterans, right? But all along the way, Republicans have been complaining about the cost and, so yeah, at the very last, and they, the really funny thing though, they thought they were going to get away with it. They thought this was a really smart play because nobody cares about veterans, right?
Right.
Yeah, no.
And that's when stuff got crazy. Yeah, I mean, that's when stuff got crazy, right? I mean, you were there. I mean, what happened? We had sit-ins on the Capitol steps. John Stewart came out. If I remember correctly, John Stewart was accosting people, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, Senate Republicans thought they were going to get away with this and head out of town. We're about the 2-year anniversary right now. They thought, okay, we'll kill this bill. We'll show those veterans, and then we'll head out of town. We'll get out of DC. And VoteVets and our allies were like, yeah, no way. Nice try. So we had veterans camped out on the Capitol steps, and we said, we are not going anywhere until you guys come back and get this done. We see you, Senate Republicans. We called them out by name.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a hard fight. Like, you guys, I'm sure, were there it's the middle of August. It's 100 degrees out there. But this bill saves lives. You know, so the delay that Senate Republicans put up was really, really outrageous, because how many veterans are sitting around with cancer waiting for their benefits, and they can't get it because Senate Republicans are slowing us down.
The part that I remember that really just drove me absolutely crazy was this little bit of a word disco that they were throwing out there. Well, we're doing this because they classified it as discretionary spending, not mandatory spending. And just like veterans who are on a countdown clock really don't give a hairy damn about discretionary versus mandatory. They want the benefits opened up, and they want it done now. They want their leaders to do the right thing, and they weren't seeing that. And to your point, Fred, that's where you started to see the Firewatch guys out on the steps, doing live streams, holding signs. I was on the sidelines for that, but it was just amazing to see just the sense of community that came out of that, where everyone was sort of oriented, same distance, same direction, all focused on the same goal, and that was to get this piece of legislation passed.
Yeah, and the passion, I think, really showed. And interesting to me too is it's a year after the fall of Kabul, right? I mean, those 2 years were very key in the veteran community. We'd really seen our war end, right? The OEF and the global war on terror really kind of ended. And here, just a year later, Republicans playing politics. Just a year at the end of the war, a 20-year war, they decided to play politics with our help, right? I mean, the outrage was palpable. It's like, Jesus, you abandoned our war. And now you're abandoning us just a year later, isn't it? So now let's for those who don't know, maybe watching, Mary, can you walk us through some of the key points? We started a little bit. There's a banner run right now talking about something. I think. What are the key points of the PACT Act for those who understand what this legislation was really about? Just some of the high points of the legislation.
Yeah, so PACT, just from the top level view, PACT was a historic expansion of healthcare coverage for veterans of all generations, Vietnam, Korea, all the way up through the global war on terror, Iraq and Afghanistan. Again, I referenced the burn pits. Agent Orange, something that a lot of Vietnam vets were exposed to in Iraq and Afghanistan. Anybody you talk to who served in those theaters was exposed to toxic substances drifting over, coming from the garbage that we were burning in Iraq and Afghanistan. It causes a whole lot of diseases. Before PACT, if a veteran ended up with some kind of disease and went to the VA and said, "Can you help me out?" the VA said, you have to prove that disease was connected to your service. And a lot of these diseases, there was no scientific proof that it was definitely came from your time of service. The huge thing that PACT did that's going to make a difference for millions and millions of veterans is it said, you don't have to prove it anymore. If you served in any of these conflicts, we're going to assume that these diseases, and there's a whole long list of diseases, these are now presumed to have come from your time of service. So we will cover you 100%. You don't have to prove it anymore.
Wow.
Again, I can't emphasize enough how huge this was.
Right, and just the ease. I mean, we all talk about how hard the VA is to work with. That has not been the case. In this case, they did. Of course, the next hurdle was implementing it, and that I think a lot of people are skeptical that this many veterans get involved. So, for perspective, they don't know if you're not a veteran like us. There's about 16 million living veterans in America, right, Mary? I think Mike, that's what your number, like 15, 16 million on a given day. We're losing a lot as our Korea War veteran, now even Vietnam veterans are passing away from old age. At any given time, about 9 million were getting veterans benefits, which is like money from the VA. And then, Mary, am I right? 6 million or so actually had VA healthcare. Is that accurate before all this? Something like that.
Yeah, 6 million.
Yeah, it wasn't nearly everybody. So what happened in a year, Mary? 2 years. It's been a little different show, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The numbers are up now to over 1.5 million. I think PACT Act claims have already been approved through the VA in the 2 years since it's been implemented.
Yeah.
You know, the challenge now for VA is not like, how are we going to, you know, how are we going to get the word out? It's how are we going to take care of all these folks? I mean, frankly, VA needs more money, more people to be able to help all of the veterans who are signing up for the Burn Pits registry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of dudes and dudettes. A million out of 16 million living is a whole bunch. That's a lot. I'm not a percentage guy. That's why I write, Mike? That's where Mike and I are writers.
I'm not gonna correct Mary on the numbers, but like there's been 1.5 claims completed, 1.1 approved. So like in the world of you know, requests granted, requests denied that we're used to in the military, this is just like off the chain. The number that have been approved just out of hand because of those presumptive conditions is just incredible. And like 338,000 new enrollees in VA healthcare just because of the PACT Act. To your point, yeah, there needs to be some resources shook loose and some good talent management to throw the net out there and find healthcare providers, administrative specialists, records keepers, the whole 9 yards to be able to support this number of this large influx of veterans coming into the system.
You know, we talk a lot about veterans healthcare, Mike, and why the VA is actually, you know, there's always talk of privatizing VA and get rid of it. But we as veterans, a lot of veterans prefer VA healthcare because, you know, they know that I'm an old scout pilot and scout pilots had this screwed up lower back because we had to hunch when we flew, right, Mike? I mean, you know, VA doctors get it, don't they?
Yeah. And, you know, when we see the number of veterans that then transition from service and go to work for the Veterans Administration, all the different agencies under the umbrella of the VA, there is a little bit of coming home, and people who know what you've been through because they walked in the same pair of boots, or you know maybe the previous couple of generations of boots. There might be some OEF and OIF that's in there that are coming in for treatment, getting treated by Cold Warriors and before. But listen, you know, we have that shared background of service and, you know, embracing the suck in our own respective eras. And I mean, those are the folks that know what we've been through, and they're going to do their damnedest to make sure that we're cared for. That you can't say the same for that for you know, privatized care where, you know, it's sort of HMO-ish where they're just looking to squeeze every dime out.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you just got back from a bike tour, or bus tour, excuse me, not a bike tour. God bless you if you did. And so we had what, 9-city bus tour, right, Mike? You were on the bus the whole time. By the way, if you guys hadn't figured it out yet, Mike's a former sergeant major. If you don't know that already, just from listening to talk. So Mike, you were on the bus. Tell us about the VoteVets bus tour for the 2-year anniversary.
Yeah, so this was pretty cool because it's called the VoteVets Veterans Vote Blue bus tour, and initially it was supposed to start in Las Vegas, and we were going to ride the bus through 8 different states. A combination of a number of factors led us to do a fly-in in Las Vegas, a fly-in in Phoenix, and then a fly-in to Milwaukee. But we picked up the bus in Milwaukee and went from Milwaukee to Detroit, Detroit to Pittsburgh, Detroit to Scranton, Scranton to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh down to Dumfries, Virginia, and then we finished up in Virginia Beach. And the purpose of this was we had a couple of different facets to this, right? So number one, it was to connect with senators who helped us carry the ball across the goal line for the PACT Act, and just show our support and thank them for all the work that went into, you know, making this landmark legislation a reality. So spending time with Jackie Rosen at an event in Las Vegas. We moved to Phoenix, where Ruben Gallego is running for the soon to be open Senate seat there, and had a great event with him at the American Legion Post in Phoenix, and then moved on to Milwaukee. And had just a phenomenal event there. So each stop we're at, we're engaging with veterans, and frankly, these are veterans from all eras. You've got a clip that I'm sure you're going to show in a little while. Mike Jernovic, who is a retired Special Forces Sergeant Major, more than 42 years in uniform, and split across three different, sort of key eras in the Army's history. Vietnam, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and then into the global war on terror. And Mike, unfortunately, not the luckiest cat in the world. This landmark legislation for toxic exposure, he got toxic exposure in three different eras, right? And he's still out there. He's still out there kicking ass and taking names. So
let's see that clip. Hey, Barb, show us that clip of Mike on his exposure.
I was in the Blue Water Navy as a Marine in 1974, so I was exposed to Agent Orange off of Da Nang, and I have since been had symptoms of Agent Orange exposure, in particular hypothyroidism. And I was exposed to sarin gas and various other chemical weaponry, possibly biological, in the Persian Gulf War. And then the burn pits in Bagram, which is where I was stationed when I was in Afghanistan. So the PACT Act is very important to me because I have exposure in three different places to really bad stuff.
And he's still out there. He's still out there mixing it up. I mean, that dude is hard as woodpecker lips. Just spend a little bit of time with Mike, and you will absolutely see it.
I can tell. I mean, I also know if I want to hang out with Mike because I don't know. It seems like all the bad shit happens around Mike. I don't know.
I did tell him I probably wouldn't want to go anywhere with him because he seems to attract trouble. And between toxic exposure and hostile fire, hey, Mike, let me get a little distance.
Yeah, he's still here. And Mary, this is what you designed this law for, isn't it? I mean, this is. I think that Mike. I love that clip because Mike is the exact example. I mean, three different wars, and that was the thing. It wasn't just for global war and terror. This goes back to, like you said, Vietnam. The guys. I love. There's a story. I think Mary, you fought that fight of the guys who flew the planes that were used to drop Agent Orange. The tanks leaked, and they had to get exposed, didn't they? Crazy, isn't it? So this
right? That's exactly right. And Mike's story is so powerful, and it really brings me back to what you showed at the beginning of the segment, Fred, which was Trump's remarks. And in addition to the horrendous Medal of Honor denigration that he engaged in yesterday, he and JD Vance have also said, and the campaign have said things like, well, that's not a real job. Tim Walz hasn't had a real job. Look Mike in the eyes and tell him that those three conflicts that he fought in, that was not a real job and he didn't earn healthcare coverage. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Be serious.
Yeah,
These guys have the utmost disrespect for service members.
And Vance voted against the PACT Act the second time, didn't he?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think that, this is the really important thing for our viewers to take away. That's exactly right. So look, like the PACT Act passed in 2022, 2 years ago, but all that did was give VA the authority to start those programs. Every year, Congress has to put money in the VA account. They have to pass a bill to give VA the funding they need, right, to pay the doctors and the nurses who are caring for our veterans. JD Vance voted against that funding. A veteran himself, and he thinks that his fellow veterans don't deserve healthcare coverage. And there are a number of Republicans in Congress who think the same way. We see it time and again. They keep attacking, specifically, keep trying to take money out of the Toxic Exposures Fund. It's really gross, but these attacks are not going to stop.
No, and Mike had an opinion about that too, didn't he? It's Mike Jernick did, didn't he?
Yeah, Mike's attitude about this whole thing is that when you he was disgusted. We've got a clip for it if you want to play it.
Yeah, Barb, what's your show, Mike?
God, that's terrible. I mean, of all the people that should be voting for that, a veteran that would not participate in that particular piece of legislation is disgusting.
Yeah, I don't want to take the guy's thunder, but yeah, disgusting. I mean,
yeah.
And just imagine, if you will, like, one of the first things you do when you basically right after you're sworn into the Senate. I'm pretty sure that legislation was a January vote. One of the first things you do is vote against the people that you deployed to Iraq with as a young Marine. I can't make the connections happen in my brain where anywhere where that would be okay. Even when you start having like poison pill type legislation attached, stuff that goes in with it that is going to give it a no vote anyway. At least you're out in the public and say, hey, I voted no because of this, but I want to keep the faith with my fellow veterans, my brothers and sisters in arms. And there was just no effort for that. It was just a no and next issue.
Yeah. Well, that's what we've come to expect from these guys, and it's not really a surprise. Guys, we've been talking for half an hour. I've been gone for a few minutes of it. Any last thoughts, Barry? I mean, you want to tell folks about how important this legislation is, what's next, and frankly, what do you think is next in the veterans world as far as policy goes?
Well, there's one thing that I hope folks are going to start tracking right now. So actually, because of the tremendous response to PACT, the VA is actually short a couple of $2 billion this year. They need Congress to pass a bill in September to give the VA a little bit more money so that veterans benefits are going to go out as scheduled on October 1. There's a small group of Senate Republicans, Tommy Tuberville is the main guy behind this, who are holding up that bill. Yep.
That guy.
So yeah.
We did not rehearse that eye roll at the simultaneous eye roll.
I think our eyes rolled up into the second floor of my house.
I can almost see my own brainstem when I just did that. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Barry.
Yeah, I mean, watch this face. Like, we're gonna be able to tell. Really, it is always Tommy Tuberville. Yeah. Well, and his buddies and like J.D. Vance, right?
Yeah.
And VoteVets, we're going to keep an eye on this. Like, you're going to hear more from us. Please follow us on social because you're going to hear more about these fights. We're not backing down. Senate Republicans are going to come attack veterans benefits again. VoteVets is going to be there.
Yeah, and we need help. We need help to do it. We're gonna need the great folks watching the show and everything else, and spreading the word. This is how we got to pass, right? We got to pass because it wasn't just it's sort of like I often compare to our lives with the civil rights movement. It didn't just pass because the people, us veterans. There's only 16 million of us. Maybe 10 million of us are active, right? Many of our veterans, the average age is in their 60s. It takes every American, whether you're a veteran or not, to join in on this and support us. And the old saying is, right, you can afford to send us to war, then you can absolutely afford to take care of us afterwards, right? Mike, you any last thoughts? I mean, you've talked to actual veterans. You've heard the stories. By the way, I'm one of the guys who filed. I forgot I mentioned that. One of my soldiers from Desert Storm. So for those who don't know, I'm a Desert Storm veteran and a 3-time OIF veteran of Iraq. I just love Iraq so much. Keep going back for the food. Kebab, man. I love me a kebab. One of my soldiers, Desert Storm, called. He had cancer. And he said, hey, man, I actually helped. I was one of the influencers to help get the word out about the PACT Act. And he's like, man, I got $57,000 check thanks to the PACT Act because they backdated it to the day it passed. And it was like a year and a half at that point. And they paid him for his cancer, no questions asked. He got 3 months processing. And he says, sir, he still calls me sir. It's been freaking 30 years. You've got to file. You got to get this. And I had already filed years ago, but I refiled. And the website, by the way, if you go to the PACT Act website, va.gov, it's really super easy to fill out. I was shocked how easy it is. And I did everything myself. And I filed for some stuff I'd never filed for. People who know me will be shocked to find out I've got PTSD. I kid, everybody knows it. And I hadn't filed for it before. And just going to the VA's website, their process, I didn't get any help from anyone. In 4 months, I was rated 100% disability, and I got a back pay. And it's really easy. So it's really a different VA. Is that what you heard too, Mike?
Well, for me, I filed in the burn pit registry. I got 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 tours in Iraq. So, my 2 of my Afghanistan stints were in the capital city of Kabul at the airport, actually, the North Kai airport where the country fell basically 3 years ago. But in the capital city of Kabul, they were burning batteries in the winter to stay warm. So we all had that special memo that said you were exposed to unacceptable levels of particulate matter in the air. I filed. I haven't had any negative upper respiratory since then, but give it a couple of years, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it takes time.
I will say that you know, not just specific to the PACT Act, but you know, veterans in general, as we made some of these stops, you know, we're in that amazing tour coach. We keep saying bus. That's more my fault. We were in a coach. I think a couple of months before Lady Gaga had been touring with that thing. So, you know, it was a nice ride. Can't complain. Can't complain much there. We would stop for lunch on the way and just engage with folks at a Wendy's or at a truck stop. And I think if we'd been rolling, you know, sort of the Harris Waltz Express, we would have gotten a lot more hostility, right? But really, we had the veterans vote blue, and the people really couldn't understand that we were Democrats and encouraging other Democrats, but we had served. We were all veterans on that bus, and once we got past the hey, I'm blue, you're red, you know, I'm green, you were green, you know, this guy was blue, he's Air Force, Army, Marine Corps. Well, we didn't talk to the Marines because they couldn't spell very well. But you know, we would had to do it. Sorry, check my block. You know, we shook a lot of hands, and we looked a lot of people in the eye, and they're like, well, you know, we may not agree politically, but you know, thank you for your service. And you know, with all the political nonsense and just partisan rancor that's out there right now, it just really felt good for me to see some people acknowledge across these you know, party lines that hey, you know what, back in the day when we were in the uniform and working to accomplish the same mission, it didn't matter, you know, our political persuasion, it didn't matter our geographical, you know, area of origin, it didn't matter our preferences, none of that came into play. Could you carry your weight? Could you move the distance? Could you do what needed to be done? And I yearn for that again, you know. And what I'm really hoping is we get a couple more elections out of the way, right? And we get rid of breed some of this MAGA out of the other side, and maybe we'll get back there again. Maybe it'll be a badge of honor once again to do bipartisan work, and to get people from the other side to, you know, help support a common cause like veterans. And again, that trip gave me just a little bit of hope, and hope is a dangerous thing.
You've been watching Ted Lasso, right? It's the hope that'll get you. You know, who knows that? Well, I really appreciate it, it's a great perspective from all of us. I mean, you know, these are the folks who've been in the fight, and we've got 2,000 people or more coming to see us and talking about it. And that's really why we do these things at VoteVets, isn't it? So Mike and Mary, thanks for joining me on this very first live stream. Glitches and all, we got it out, and we're trying it out. There's going to be a lot more of these to come. So thanks for joining me. I'll get you guys back on again soon.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks, everybody.
So that is it. That's our first one, folks. Thank you for joining us. Our first ever VoteVets Live. We'll have a lot more of these comments starting next week. I will be at the DNC. I'm going to help to get we'll have some really cool programming from the DNC. I'm very excited about that. Many of our VoteVets partners and members will be there as well. We're going to talk a lot in these videos going forward about the issues that matter to you, our community, and veterans. You know, veterans issues themselves, our healthcare, like you heard today. Also, those of our military families, national security, the war in Ukraine, the things that matter to us, because we do care about our national security, and of course our political future. This is such an important election. You'll hear from experts in our field. You'll hear from our members. You'll hear from some famous people. You'll hear from elected officials. We got it all here at VoteVets. We're going to try and show you the power of this organization that was started many years ago. Now in 2006, it's been going for many years. It's incredible what's been built. You can learn more about VoteVets at our website, votevets.org, as well as purchase some of our cool gear. There's a QR code on your screen. If you want to grab that real quick, we would be thrilled and honored and appreciative. You can just throw some money down, just a couple bucks at us, so we can do these bus tours, so we can show America what this is all about and what we're trying to do, show the strength of our veteran community, get veterans elected to office and people that support our veterans and military family members. I interviewed a lady the other day who's a Marine Corps spouse. She's running against a former Marine Corps 3-star general. Okay, so that's the kind of people we love here at VoteVets. So your generous donations kind of make that possible. So again, I am Fred Wellman. I'm an Army veteran, multi-time Iraq veteran, and I am the host of VoteVets Live. I'll see you again soon. In the meantime, look, we can't do this alone. Get in the fight for our nation. We have a role to play. Figure out what your role is going to be, and let's go out there and save our democracy. See you soon.